NFL Week 11 is underway. It's fantasy football time once more. And we only got a couple of buys, multiple injuries. We've got some streaming options, Ed. Who are we without in Week 11, though?
Yeah, much quieter week in terms of buys after previous weeks where we've had 6 and 4. We're down to 2. So we've got the Colts, who at the start of the season we would not have considered that an issue, but it is at the moment. Danny Dimes, JT, so someone else gets a chance at Fancy Heroes this week. Tyler Warren has been a revelation. And Michael Pittman and maybe even Alec Pierce, who's been a popular flex play. And then for the Saints, well, you won't have to be disappointed by Kamara this week, but you are without Olave and Javon Johnson. Just a little note, Tyler Shook was QB 12 last week, so it'll be interesting to see what he will look like post-bye.
Having a look at those injuries that we've got as well. As always, this is not an exhaustive list and things are ever changing, but Jackson Dart not confirmed as out yet, but it looks to be going that way with concussion. CJ Stroud is confirmed out with his concussion. Bucky Irving ruled out once again. He's not been disappointing. The situation's been very disappointing from a fantasy
honestly,
point of view.
I've got Bucky Irving in quite a few leagues, and it's just so frustrating when they're not on IR. At least when they're on IR, you can kind of go, well, that's fine. But it's every week, it's like, is he going to? Oh, no, he's not. It's so frustrating.
So, yeah, we're without Bucky again. Isaiah Pacheco didn't practice again on Thursday. Looks like we'll be without him. Chris Godwin ruled out again. It looks like he may be somewhere for return from the information coming out at the moment. Darius Slayton will miss out on the Jameis Winston missile arm experience with a hamstring injury. Dalton Kincaid has been ruled out with a hamstring injury too. And at the time of recording, Sam Laporta appears to be trending out with a back injury. Brock Purdy's back. That turf toe seems to finally be back in a boot. JJ McCarthy's fit. And surprise, surprise, Lamar Jackson being out on Wednesday was nothing more than a rest day. What a huge surprise. And Ricky Pearsall is also due to return. I can start up the engine of that hype train once more. Please do take a moment, though, if you haven't already, to give us a subscribe, a like, and a share. We'll bring you streaming options every single week, including Ed's plug-and-play QB options.
Yeah, a few QBs for your delectation. And first up, he's back, baby. That's right. Jameis Winston is back. We've been waiting all season.
Yes.
He started at QB3 at New York behind, of course, Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. Finally, he gets his chance, what we've been waiting for. 10% rostered. I think he was 2% rostered at the start of the week. Let's enjoy the ride while it lasts. I'm sure there's going to be a few big plays and interceptions galore. I mean, he's got the Packers. It's a tough matchup. They're in the top 10 when it comes to giving up fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So don't expect a big score, but he'll be more exciting than Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think we've given up after finally came to an end after a hot streak of 7 correct prediction on the TH touchdown guarantee. I'm going to go for a really easy one, start another thing going. I'm going to give a Jameis Winston interception guarantee.
Interception guarantee. Yeah, there will definitely be an interception, maybe 2. So yeah. I mean, if you've got the Packers defense, you're probably laughing this weekend. Let's be honest. Moving on to Tua. Tua is 23% rostered. I mean, to say he's had an up and down season, I think would be kind, but I think he's going to have a decent week in Madrid. He's coming up against the Commanders, who are giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, a shade over 21 points. I mean, he's thrown far too many ugly interceptions this season, and I think that's been a big problem for Tua. So that's something to be wary of. But I think he's pretty much guaranteed to be maybe a top 10, top 15 quarterback this week. So if you're in need, I think Tua could be somebody to have a look at. And finally, Geno Smith, 70% rostered, maybe a bit of a wild card, but it's very much opponent driven. So first choice is always which quarterback has the Bengals defense. The second choice is always who has the Cowboys defense. This week, it's Geno. So the Cowboys are giving up the most fantasy points per game to the quarterbacks. That's right, more than the Bengals, just under 25 points per game. Gino, I mean, looking back at his season, he's only had 3 fantasy relevant weeks, but they have come against the weaker defenses. So if you look at week 3 against the Commanders, week 9 against the Jags, he racked up a couple of big scores. So expect him to do the same against this week against the Cowboys. So yeah, I think Gino could be a fairly canny plug and play quarterback this week.
Time to turn to tight ends, and if you are without Tyler Warren, Javon Johnson, or Taysom Hill, no, thank goodness we've not spoken about him very much so far this season. We've got some options for you. We've got a couple of widely available and then one not so widely available who's worth having a look for at least. So, Pat Frymouth versus the Bengals, Route 1, as always. Which tight end plays the Bengals? Similar theme to QBs, Edward. Frymouth feels most likely to perform here as he's averaging 4 targets per game post-bye. And although Jonnu Smith also carries appeal, this is where I feel the upside will lie. Let's not forget, though, last outing in this matchup, 3 tight ends and 3 Steelers tight ends featured in the game, and 3 Steelers tight ends got touchdowns. So there is,
wow.
So we shall see what happens this week. I'm going to stick in the same game though, because Noah Fant, we've spoken about him a couple of times, and we've not quite got it right, Ed. Let's be fair, but he's been a reliable target for Flacco. Only one fantasy relevant week is the concern as far as we're concerned. Steelers are softer opposition for tight ends than some of the opponents he's had, though. So a touchdown seems a possible outcome. And with that, you will be more than happy here. He's an obvious gamble, though. All of these tight ends are. Otherwise, they'll be locked in and more highly rostered. And then finally, Zach Ertz versus the Dolphins. Giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to tight ends, 17.51. Obviously safer, but at quick as is only 28% available and plays earlier on Sunday in Spain. Good matchup for the up and down Ertz, but top 10 week feels like it could be on the cards here. So he gets that steady 4 to 6 targets a game. Is a little touchdown dependent, I think, to kind of get you really over the line. But as we said, all of these are a risk. That's why they're not plugged in absolutely everywhere already. Ed, we say it week in, week out. If you are playing defense in your fantasy football leagues, how should you be approaching it?
You should be streaming them, Mark. I think everybody knows that by now, but I'm happy to repeat it. So we've got 3 options for you this week. First up, the Rams. I mean, the Rams still surprisingly low rostership at 56% because they are currently the 5th best fantasy defense as it stands. They're kind of just a reliable week-to-week defense. They've only had 1 week where they've got fewer than 6 fantasy points. And recently, they've been on a bit of an upturn as well. They've averaged 12 fantasy points across the last 4 weeks. This week, they've got the Seahawks and Sam Darnold, who are solid, but I still think, Sam might throw you an interception in there. So yeah, I'd expect the Rams to do okay this week. Moving on to the Falcons, very similar rostership, 55%. They currently sit in the middle of the pack. They're currently defense 14 from a fantasy perspective, but they have been hot the last couple of weeks with big scores against some tough offenses, the Patriots and the Colts. In those 2 games, they've had 6 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, as well as a couple of interceptions. So they've been putting up those big points. They have the Panthers this week, who have struggled on offense. Bryce Young has had an absolutely horrible couple of weeks. I expect a big score from the Falcons defense this week. I'll be absolutely stunned if they don't make double figures this week. Finally, the Dolphins, 5% rostered, so a bit of a punt. They currently sit as defense 21, but they do come off the back of a big week against Josh Allen and the Bills. They racked up 15 points against the Bills. And this week they face the Commanders, who, as we, have come to expect more recently, have Marcus Mariota as their quarterback. I think it's a chance for them to force him into some mistakes. You certainly would be rather facing Mariota rather than Jaden Daniels. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in trouble and you need a defense, I do think the Dolphins might be someone worth plugging in this week.
Finally, then, On our Friday show, we are looking at a brand new game on Fantasy Gameday. So for our UK viewers, you can get yourself by downloading the Fantasy Gameday app. And their new game is the Triple Crown game. So what you need to do is each week you get to choose a QB, a running back, and a wide receiver from a choice of 3. And basically, if you get the combination right of the high scoring quarterback, high scoring running back, high scoring wide receiver, you get a share of the prize pot. So whatever is in that prize pot is divided between everyone. And it's fair chance of winning. There's a bit of prediction there as well. But the odds are 3 times 3 times 3. There are 27 combinations. Win with a reasonable chance of sorting that out. We are going to go through our picks each week. And we've got a little bit of logic to it. I think what's quite nice is as well, you can throw a little bit of gut instinct or just your own bias in there as well with this game. It's a nice cheap game at £2 a play with a nice prize pot we're expecting. I am going first for Justin Herbert is my QB choice out of Herbert, Mayfield and Williams. He's got the Jags, who are given the 5th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks in the league, 20.97. And he's just having a good season because of the number of weapons around him. I see a good week for him there. Second up, my running back pick. I do think Josh Jacobs is more probable to have the high score this week. And we'll talk more about him on our DFS show. I just want to go for Bijan. It's a couple of down weeks. I really want to see a monstrous Bijan week. I mean, the Panthers, they're middle of the pack against fantasy running backs, but Bijan is sort of a game breaker when it comes to that, isn't he? He can just have a monster game from nowhere. So I'm hoping we see that. And then finally, there is only one choice for me here. As much as I love Emeka Egbuka, Justin Jefferson against the Bears, we're given the 5th most points in the league. No, we've not seen prime Jetters this year so far, but this could be the week for me. So I'm going Herbert, Bijan, and Jefferson. Have you got any picks that match mine, Ed, or have you gone completely a different route?
We've got a completely different route, which is quite nice. I've gone as my quarterback. I've gone for Baker against the Bills. I just think Baker was absolutely superb against the Patriots last week, and that's what's forced me. It's maybe more of a gut thing. I trust in Baker. You know, the Bills are a very strong against quarterbacks, so that counts against him. But yeah, I'm going for Baker Mayfield. I have gone for Josh Jacobs against the Giants. They are giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to running backs at 26.7. So I think that is pretty much nailed on. And I thought, well, you know, it's a different game, but surely stacking still makes sense. So if I'm going for Baker, I'm going for Emeka Egbuka. The Bills are giving up just over 30 fantasy points per game to wide receivers, which puts them in the middle of the pack. But I just thought last week, Egbuka, after a quiet few weeks before the bye, looked really refreshed coming back off the bye. So I'm pretty confident slotting him in. So I've gone for Mayfield, Jacobs, and Egbuka.
So we shall see how it works out next week. See if we get a share of the prize pot, one of us. If you have not played a Fantasy Gameday app and you are in the UK, use that promo code THFF1 for 1 free play with your first paid entry. Tell them Pestle and Ed sent you. You'll get nothing more than your free play, but just tell them it's nice to be involved, isn't it? That is all I've got to say, though, Ed, about week 11. Do you have any more things you wish to point out?
No, I think we've covered it all, Mark.
Well, that is us then. We'll be back tomorrow with our DFS show with Fantasy Gameday and DraftKings prize pots. So that's all from me. It's all from Ed. So bada bing, bada bye. Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.